David woke up before the sun as he did almost every day. His apartment was small, simple, and neat, a reflection of his careful life. There were few decorations, a worn sofa and a tiny table by the window where his daughter Layla often ate breakfast. Despite the modest space, it was warm, and it held a sense of home. The first thing David did each morning was check on Layla, who was still sleeping peacefully, her small chest rising and falling with each breath. He smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. Even after the hardest nights, seeing her calm face made him feel a spark of hope. David knew today would be long. He had multiple delivery orders lined up, and traffic in the city was always unpredictable. Money was tight and every shift mattered. Bills stacked on the counter reminded him of rent, electricity, and school fees for Layla. He sighed, but he didn't dwell on the stress. Life had been harder before, and he had learned to take each day as it came. Today, like every day, he had to find a balance between work and being the father his daughter deserved. He quietly prepared breakfast for Layla, scrambled eggs with toast and a small glass of juice. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee, a comfort he allowed himself for the brief moments before the day's rush began. When Layla stirred and rubbed her eyes, David lifted her into a hug, careful to keep the morning calm and gentle. "Morning, Daddy," she mumbled, still half asleep. "Morning, sweetheart. Ready for school?" he asked, smiling. She nodded, her small smile brightening the room. Even in these simple exchanges, David found motivation. Layla's happiness was his anchor, the reason he pushed through long, exhausting days. After breakfast, he helped Layla get ready for school, tying her shoelaces and brushing her hair. Each morning was a routine, a rhythm that grounded both of them. By the time she left for her bus, David was ready with his delivery backpack, wallet, and phone, navigating the first steps of his workday with practiced efficiency. The streets were busy, crowded with people rushing to work, buses stopping abruptly and cars honking impatiently. David maneuvered his delivery bike through traffic, alert and careful. He had learned the city's shortcuts, the back alleys, and the lanes that saved him precious minutes. Every delivery mattered because each tip added up, and every customer depended on him arriving on time. David's first few deliveries went smoothly, but he never allowed himself to relax completely. He checked the orders carefully, confirmed addresses, and ensured the food was intact. He liked to do things right. Even small mistakes could ruin someone's day, and he didn't want that on his conscience. By midday, David had already visited dozens of locations. He felt the fatigue settling into his muscles, but he didn't complain. He reminded himself that his work was temporary, and that each delivery was a step toward a better day for Layla. His mind wandered briefly to her smile at breakfast, and he felt a surge of warmth. It was during one of these midday deliveries that something unexpected happened. David was headed toward a high-end neighborhood, a place he didn't often visit. The streets were lined with large houses, perfectly trimmed lawns, and fancy cars parked along the driveways. He had delivered to this area only a few times before, and it always gave him a sense of awe. The world looked different here, quieter and more organized, almost like stepping into another life. As he parked his bike near a house, ready to make the delivery, he heard a sudden cry. Looking up, he saw an elderly woman struggling on the sidewalk. She had slipped on the wet pavement, the rain earlier leaving slick patches that were easy to miss. David's heart leapt, and without thinking he ran toward her. "Are you okay, ma'am?" he asked, kneeling beside her. The woman was trembling, her hands clutching at her coat. "I think so. I just fell," she stammered. David gently helped her to her feet, supporting her weight carefully. He felt her trembling stop gradually as he steadied her. He asked her if she had hurt herself, checking her arms, legs, and back for signs of injury. She shook her head, thankful but still shaken. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." David shrugged, brushing off the gratitude. "It's nothing. Just be careful next time, okay?" The woman smiled faintly, and for a moment David felt a strange sense of calm. It wasn't heroic or dramatic. It was just doing what felt right. Life had given him enough moments where small gestures mattered more than grand ones. After ensuring she was steady, David continued his delivery. The incident lingered in his mind, though he didn't dwell on it. He had many stops to make, and he needed to keep moving. Yet there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing he had helped someone in need without expecting anything in return. As he walked through the neighborhood, he noticed the contrast between the lives around him and his own. Here people had so much, yet they rarely showed real connection or gratitude. David's own life was simple and full of struggles, but it was rich in small joys. Layla's laughter, the smiles of neighbors, the moments of genuine human kindness. These were treasures that money could not buy. By late afternoon, the sun had broken through the clouds, casting warm light across the city. David had completed his deliveries and was heading home when he saw familiar streets filled with children playing, neighbors chatting, and the smell of food from local restaurants wafting through the air. Even the simplest parts of the city carried a sense of community, something he often missed during the rush of deliveries. At home, Layla was waiting, her face lighting up as soon as she saw him. "Daddy, did you have a busy day?" she asked eagerly. David smiled, ruffling her hair. "Busy, but we got through it. How was school?" She chattered about her day, the small victories and the fun moments with friends. Listening to her, David felt the weight of the day lift slightly. The struggles, the long hours, and the exhaustion all seemed worthwhile in these quiet moments of connection. As night fell, David prepared dinner, helping Layla with homework and listening to her stories. The apartment, though modest, was filled with warmth, laughter, and love. It was a reminder that even in a world full of challenges, the simplest things could be the most meaningful. Before bed, David reflected on the day's events. Helping the elderly woman had been a brief moment, yet it reminded him of something important. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes small acts of kindness can change more than one life. He didn't know it yet, but that one moment of helping a stranger would set off a chain of events that would forever change both his life and Layla's. David tucked Layla into bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, my little star. Daddy's got your back always." As he turned off the light and closed the door, he felt a quiet determination settle over him. Life would continue to be tough, but with courage, compassion, and love, he could face whatever came next. And somewhere in the city, the elderly woman he had helped would remember him not as a delivery driver, but as a kind soul who had paused to help when it mattered most. The next morning, David woke up feeling the usual fatigue from his long day yesterday. Yet there was a small spark of satisfaction in his chest. Something about helping that elderly woman had stayed with him. He tried not to think too much about it, telling himself that he had just done what anyone would do, but deep down he knew it was different. There was something about the way she had looked at him, grateful, relieved, and perhaps even a little amazed, that made him feel like he had made a real difference, even in a small way. After getting Layla ready for school and sending her off on the bus, David geared up for another long day of deliveries. He grabbed his backpack, checked his phone for orders, and headed out into the bustling city streets. The morning traffic was heavier than usual, cars inching forward while impatient drivers honked their horns. David weaved carefully through the lanes on his delivery bike, aware of every car and pedestrian around him. He had learned to navigate this chaos with patience and skill, knowing that a small mistake could cost him time, a tip, or worse, an accident. As he made his first few stops, the thought of yesterday's encounter lingered at the back of his mind. David wondered how the elderly woman was doing. Was she hurt more than she had let on? Did she manage to get home safely? These questions nagged at him, but he pushed them aside. He had work to do, and the city wouldn't slow down for anyone. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that their paths had crossed for a reason, though he couldn't yet understand why. Midday came quickly, and David found himself heading toward the same upscale neighborhood as yesterday. The streets were quiet now, with the occasional jogger or dog walker passing by. The large houses and perfectly manicured lawns gave the area a calm, almost otherworldly feeling. David parked his bike near one of the houses, double-checking the delivery order. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, he caught sight of the elderly woman again. She was sitting on a bench in front of a house, wrapped in a light coat and holding a small umbrella. She looked up as he approached, and her eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Oh, it's you," she said, her voice soft but filled with genuine warmth. "You're the young man who helped me yesterday." David smiled, trying to keep it casual. "Yes, ma'am. I hope you're feeling okay today." She nodded, though her expression hinted at lingering concern. "Yes, much better, thanks to you. I've been thinking about your kindness all day." It's rare to meet someone who helps without expecting anything in return. David shrugged modestly. I just did what felt right. Anyone would have done the same. The woman's smile grew and she gestured for him to sit beside her on the bench. David hesitated for a moment but then obliged. Something about her demeanor made him feel at ease. She seemed genuinely interested in talking to him, not in a way that felt forced but in a natural human way. I've been meaning to ask your name, she said. I realized I didn't catch it yesterday. David, he replied simply. And you are? Eleanor, she answered. Eleanor Sinclair. I live in one of the houses nearby. I wanted to thank you properly for helping me. David raised an eyebrow slightly, unsure how to respond. He had not expected this. Eleanor's tone suggested gratitude beyond mere words, but David had learned to be cautious. In his life, sudden attention or praise often came with strings attached. He studied her face carefully, trying to gauge her intentions. Yet there was something in her eyes that told him she was sincere. Thank you, Eleanor, he said finally. It really was nothing. I mean it, she nodded, her gaze steady. I insist. You deserve more than a simple thank you. You saved me yesterday. That matters more than you realize. For a moment, David felt a mix of surprise and disbelief. People in his world rarely noticed or appreciated the small efforts he made. Yet here was someone who not only noticed but wanted to express it in a meaningful way. It made him wonder why she had taken such an interest in a stranger. Eleanor paused as if deciding how to phrase her next words. I know this might sound strange, but I would like to invite you for a small dinner. Nothing fancy, just a chance for me to properly thank you and learn more about you. David's heart skipped a beat. He was unsure how to react. He had never been invited to a stranger's home like this, especially not someone who lived in a world so different from his own. His instincts told him to decline politely, to avoid complicating his life, but another part of him was curious. He had always believed in kindness and connection, and perhaps this was another opportunity to experience both. I appreciate the offer, he said slowly, but I'm not sure. I have my daughter and my schedule is tight. Eleanor smiled, sensing his hesitation. I understand. I wouldn't ask if it weren't important to me. We can arrange a time that works for you. And I promise there's no pressure. I just want to say thank you properly. David considered her words. He thought about Layla, about the importance of showing her that good deeds and honesty mattered. Maybe this was an extension of that lesson, proof that kindness could lead to unexpected and positive outcomes. All right, he said finally. We can arrange something later. Eleanor's eyes lit up with gratitude. Thank you, David. I'll make sure it's convenient for you. I just want to do something meaningful to show my appreciation. They talked a little longer, mostly about simple things, the neighborhood, the weather, and small stories from their lives. David shared a few moments about Layla, careful not to reveal too much personal information, while Eleanor spoke about her own life in general terms. She didn't flaunt her wealth or position, which David appreciated. It felt like a genuine conversation, not one filtered through status or expectation. Eventually, David had to leave to continue his deliveries. He said goodbye and Eleanor thanked him again, her voice warm and sincere. As he rode away on his bike, David couldn't help but reflect on the encounter. It was strange to feel so acknowledged by a stranger, yet it felt right. Perhaps moments like this were rare, but they reminded him that life could surprise even the most cautious people. For the rest of the day, David's mind wandered back to Eleanor and her unexpected invitation. He found himself replaying their conversation, analyzing the way she had spoken, the way she had smiled. It was unusual to feel this connection with someone he barely knew, but it was not unwelcome. Deep down, he felt a small sense of excitement, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. By evening, David returned home, tired but satisfied. Layla ran to him as he entered the apartment, her small arms wrapping around his waist. Daddy, did anything interesting happen today? She asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. David smiled, hugging her back. Nothing too exciting, but I did meet someone interesting. We'll see what comes of it, okay? Layla nodded, clearly sensing that her father was speaking about something important, though she didn't fully understand. They had dinner together, shared stories, and enjoyed a few moments of laughter. The apartment was filled with warmth, the simple life they led feeling comfortable despite the struggles outside their door. As David prepared for bed that night, he thought again about the encounter. He had helped a stranger, and in return he had been met with genuine gratitude. It was a reminder that even in the busiest, toughest days, small acts of kindness could create ripples far beyond what anyone might imagine. He laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow and what it might bring. The city outside his window hummed with life, full of people rushing to their own destinations, each carrying their own stories, struggles, and hopes. David felt a renewed sense of purpose. Life was unpredictable, yes, but moments like these reminded him why it mattered to keep going, to keep helping, and to keep believing that good things could happen to those who did the right thing. And somewhere in the neighborhood, Eleanor would remember him as more than a delivery driver. She would remember him as a kind soul, someone who paused in the rush of life to help another. David didn't know it yet, but this encounter was only the beginning, a small spark that would grow into something life-changing, for him and for Layla, in ways he could not yet imagine. The following evening, David found himself walking nervously toward the house in the upscale neighborhood. He had thought about Eleanor's invitation all day. Part of him had felt hesitant. He didn't usually step into spaces so different from his own world, but another part of him felt curious, even a little excited. He reminded himself that he wasn't doing this for himself. He was teaching Layla in a way that kindness mattered and that sometimes life could surprise you in good ways. When he arrived, a small smile played across Eleanor's face as she greeted him at the door. "David, I'm so glad you could make it," she said warmly. "Come in, please." David stepped inside cautiously. The house was large, tastefully decorated, but not ostentatious. It felt inviting, more like a home than a display of wealth. He noticed photos on the walls, family pictures, travel memories, and artwork that hinted at a life full of experiences. Eleanor gestured for him to sit in the living room, offering tea or coffee. David chose tea, and she prepared it while keeping the conversation light and casual. As they settled into the room, Eleanor asked about his day and about Layla. David spoke about the usual school routines, small joys, and the challenges of his work. Eleanor listened carefully, nodding and occasionally smiling, showing genuine interest. David noticed that she didn't interrupt or judge. She simply listened, and that made him feel respected in a way he wasn't used to. After a few minutes of conversation, Eleanor paused and looked at him with a serious expression. "David, I want to share something with you," she began. "I know you may have already guessed, but I think it's time you understand who I really am." David leaned forward slightly, curious. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice steady but cautious. Eleanor took a deep breath. "I'm the CEO of a company here in the city. I own and manage several businesses. It's a complicated life, but I wanted you to know this because I want you to understand that when I say I want to thank you, I mean it sincerely. I don't do this lightly, and I don't expect anything in return." David blinked, momentarily speechless. He had not expected this at all. All this time, he had thought of Eleanor as simply a kind elderly woman, someone in need who had been fortunate enough to receive help. He had never imagined she held such a position of power and influence. "That's a lot," he said finally, trying to find the right words. "I just helped because it felt like the right thing to do. I didn't do it for recognition or anything else." Eleanor smiled warmly. "I know, David, and that's why I admire you. In a world where so many people are focused on themselves, you acted with pure kindness. That's rare, and it deserves to be acknowledged properly." David felt a mix of emotions, surprise, humility, and a touch of disbelief. It was not often in his life that someone noticed him in this way, someone who had the power to make life much easier for him if they chose to. Yet Eleanor didn't flaunt her status. She spoke as an equal, treating him with dignity and respect. They continued talking for a while, and David found himself relaxing. Eleanor asked more about his life, how he managed as a single father, the challenges he faced, and his hopes for the future. David shared stories about Layla, about the small victories he celebrated each day, and about the struggles that weighed on him. Eleanor listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions and offering gentle encouragement. "You have a lot on your shoulders, David," she said at one point, "but it's clear that you care deeply for your daughter, and that makes all the difference. The way you handle life despite the difficulties is inspiring." David felt a warmth in his chest. He wasn't used to hearing such sincere praise. Most of the time, people only cared about the work he did for them or the money he earned. Rarely did anyone notice the effort, the responsibility, and the love he poured into his daily life. Eleanor's words felt like a quiet validation of all the struggles he endured. As the evening progressed, Eleanor invited David to have dinner with her. She had prepared a simple yet elegant meal, and they shared it in a calm, relaxed atmosphere. They talked about books, travel, and small life lessons. David found himself laughing at her stories, and she listened intently to his experiences. The connection between them felt genuine, built on mutual respect and the small but meaningful act that had brought them together in the first place. During the meal, Eleanor leaned forward slightly, her expression serious but kind. "David, I want to do more than just thank you with words," she said. "I want to offer you an opportunity that could make a real difference in your life. I see how hard you work, and I want to help you and Layla in a way that's meaningful and lasting." David's curiosity was piqued. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. "I want to offer you a position in my company," she explained. "It's not just a job. It's a stable opportunity, with support for your family and guidance to help you grow professionally. I don't want you to feel pressured, but I believe you have the character and determination to succeed in ways that could change your life." David's mind raced. A stable job with financial security, guidance, and mentorship from someone with experience and influence. It was almost unimaginable, yet he felt a hesitation rooted in humility and caution. He wasn't used to opportunities like this. In his life, good fortune rarely arrived so directly. I don't know what to say," he admitted. "I mean, I'm grateful, of course, but I don't want to seem unworthy of this." Eleanor reached out and placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "David, you are more than worthy. You've proven your worth through your actions, your responsibility, and your love for your daughter. This is my way of recognizing that, and I hope you'll consider it. There's no rush. Take your time and decide what feels right for you." David nodded, feeling a mixture of gratitude, disbelief, and hope. He had spent years struggling, often feeling like he was just surviving, barely keeping things together for Layla. And now, here was an opportunity that could provide stability, growth, and a brighter future. But more importantly, it wasn't just about money or status. It was about being seen, respected, and given a chance to thrive. They finished their meal, and David helped Eleanor tidy up the dishes. As they moved around the kitchen, she spoke again, this time with a gentle tone. "David, remember this, sometimes life rewards the small, kind actions we take without expecting anything. You helped me because it was the right thing to do, and now the universe is offering something in return. That's how life works in mysterious ways." David smiled softly, realizing the truth in her words. Life had been unpredictable, challenging, and often unfair. But moments like these reminded him that good things could happen to those who acted with integrity and compassion. Before leaving, Eleanor walked him to the door. "Take some time to think about it," she said, "and know that whatever you decide, I will always respect your choice. But I truly hope you'll consider the opportunity." David stepped outside, the night air cool against his face. The city lights reflected off the streets, bustling with life. As he walked back to his bike, his mind was full of possibilities, questions, and cautious hope. He thought about Layla, imagining how her life could change if he accepted this chance. He also thought about himself, wondering if he was ready to step into a new world while staying true to the values he had always held. As he rode home, the streets passed by in a blur, but his thoughts were focused. He remembered Eleanor's words about kindness, integrity, and the unexpected ways life could reward good deeds. He realized that the encounter yesterday, a simple act of helping someone in need, had opened a door he never imagined existed. And now the choice was his to make. When he reached home, Layla was waiting as always, her small face lighting up at the sight of him. "Daddy, did you have a good evening?" she asked eagerly. David smiled, hugging her tightly. "Yes, Layla. Something special happened tonight. We'll talk about it later." She nodded, satisfied for the moment, and ran off to her room. David watched her go, feeling a sense of determination settle over him. Whatever he decided, he knew he wanted to make the most of the opportunity. Not for himself alone, but for her. As he prepared for bed, he reflected on the past 2 days. The simple act of helping someone had led to a connection that could change his life. He thought about the struggles he had faced, the long hours, the financial worries, and the emotional weight of raising Layla alone. And now, amidst it all, a new possibility had emerged, one that could offer stability, growth, and hope. David lay down, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the conversation with Eleanor. He felt a cautious optimism, a sense that perhaps life could be kinder than he had imagined. And somewhere, he realized, the woman he had helped wasn't just someone in need. She was a reminder that good deeds, no matter how small, could ripple into life-changing opportunities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, decisions and moments, but David felt ready to consider the opportunity, ready to step into the unknown, and ready to continue being the father and man he knew he could be. The next morning, David woke up with a mixture of excitement and unease. The events of the previous evening played repeatedly in his mind. Eleanor's words, her invitation, and the life-changing opportunity she had offered him kept running through his thoughts. It was a lot to take in, and for the first time in a long while, he felt that life might be about to change in ways he could hardly imagine. He began his day as usual, helping Layla get ready for school, preparing breakfast and seeing her off to the bus. But this morning, his routine felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a quiet energy that made even the mundane tasks feel significant. As he brewed his coffee and packed his delivery bag, he thought about the decision he had to make. Accepting Eleanor's offer could provide stability and a better life for Layla, but it also meant stepping into a world he barely knew, leaving behind the life he had built with his own hands. David tried to focus on work, taking his deliveries one by one, yet his mind wandered constantly to the conversation with Eleanor. He remembered her words about integrity, kindness, and opportunity. He thought about the way she had listened, truly listened without judgment or condescension. It was rare, and he realized it had touched him more than he expected. The more he thought about it, the more he understood that this wasn't just about a job. It was about being recognized and respected for who he was, not just what he did to survive. During a break between deliveries, David sat on a bench watching the city move around him. People hurried past, lost in their own worlds, some smiling, some frustrated, most oblivious to the small miracles happening around them each day. He thought about the elderly woman, Eleanor, and the simple act of helping her. That one decision, to stop and assist someone in need, had created a ripple effect that reached far beyond what he could have imagined. David took out his phone and looked at a picture of Layla. Her small, smiling face reminded him of why he worked so hard every day. She was his motivation, his reason to keep going even when the world seemed heavy and unfair. If accepting Eleanor's offer could provide a more stable life for her, give her opportunities he could only dream of, then perhaps it was the right choice. Despite this, doubt lingered. He wondered if he was ready to step into a corporate environment, one so different from the delivery routes and streets he navigated daily. Would he fit in? Could he succeed in a world that demanded different skills, more polish and different knowledge? The uncertainty was daunting, but he reminded himself that he had faced challenges before, and he had never backed down. By afternoon, he received a message from Eleanor, asking if he had given any thought to the opportunity. Her message was gentle, without pressure, but it reminded him that time and decisions awaited. David took a deep breath and decided to reply. He wrote that he wanted to meet again, to discuss the role in more detail and understand what it would mean for him and Layla. Sending the message felt like taking the first step toward something new, something promising and terrifying at the same time. That evening, David arrived at Eleanor's home again, this time with a clearer sense of purpose. She greeted him warmly, smiling as if she knew the weight of his thoughts and respected the deliberation it took to reach this point. They sat down in the living room, the atmosphere calm and welcoming. Eleanor began by explaining the role she envisioned for David. "I want you to start in a position where you can learn and grow," she said. "It won't be immediate responsibility for everything, but it will give you stability, mentorship, and an environment where you can develop skills for the long term. I want this to benefit both you and Layla, giving you a foundation for the future." David listened carefully, nodding. He felt the possibilities open before him. Stability meant predictable income, less worry about bills, and more time to spend with Layla. Mentorship meant learning from someone experienced, gaining insight into business, leadership, and decision-making. The idea that he could step into this world without losing himself or his values was both reassuring and inspiring. Eleanor continued, emphasizing the support she wanted to offer. I also want to provide resources for Layla, educational opportunities, and a safe environment for her to grow. This isn't about charity, David. It's about recognizing your potential and supporting it. You've shown courage, responsibility, and integrity, qualities that are far more important than a resume or credentials. David felt a warmth in his chest. Eleanor wasn't offering him a handout. She was offering a chance, a partnership of sorts built on respect and recognition. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine what life could be like if he accepted this opportunity. He could see Layla smiling, her education supported, their home stable and secure, and himself growing in confidence and skill. As the conversation continued, David asked questions, wanting to understand fully what the role would entail. Eleanor answered patiently, outlining the training, the responsibilities, and the expectations. Nothing felt overwhelming or unrealistic. Instead, it felt like a bridge from the life he knew to a life with more opportunity, one built on the foundation of his own values and hard work. After the discussion, David and Eleanor took a moment of quiet reflection. He looked around the room, noticing again the photos and decorations that told stories of her life. It was comforting to see that despite her wealth and influence, she had remained grounded, valuing relationships and integrity over status. That groundedness reassured him, giving him confidence that the opportunity would be a safe and meaningful step forward. Finally, David spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Eleanor, I want to accept this opportunity. I want to do my best, not just for me, but for Layla. I don't know exactly what to expect, but I know this could change our lives in ways I can't imagine. I promise I'll work hard and stay true to who I am. Eleanor smiled, her eyes reflecting warmth and encouragement. David, that's all I could hope for. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be yourself and put your heart into it. That's what matters most. As they concluded the meeting, David felt a profound sense of relief and hope. He had made a decision, taken a step forward, and allowed himself to embrace possibility. The weight of uncertainty had lifted, replaced by a quiet excitement for what the future could hold. Walking home that evening, David reflected on the journey that had brought him here. A single act of kindness, helping someone in need, had created a connection that opened doors he never imagined. He realized that life's twists and turns often brought unexpected opportunities, and that courage, compassion, and integrity could truly change the course of one's path. Back at home, Layla ran to greet him, her small arms wrapped around his waist. "Daddy, did you make a decision?" she asked eagerly, sensing something important had happened. David knelt and hugged her tightly. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to have some new opportunities coming our way. Things might change a little, but it will be good for us." Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and David felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything he had experienced. He had worked tirelessly to provide for her, often feeling like it was never enough. And now finally he saw a future where their lives could be more secure, more joyful, and filled with possibility. That night, as he tucked Layla into bed, he whispered, "We're going to be okay, my little star. Daddy's got you, and we're going to make the most of this." She smiled sleepily, resting her head against his shoulder, and David felt a deep sense of purpose settle in him. He sat quietly in the living room afterward, reflecting on the day's events. The opportunity was more than just a job. It was a bridge to stability, growth, and hope. He realized that life's most significant moments often came from simple choices made with kindness and courage, and he knew that by stepping forward, embracing this opportunity, he was not just improving his life, but teaching Layla a vital lesson about perseverance, integrity, and the unexpected rewards of doing good in the world. David felt a renewed sense of determination. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, adjustments, and moments of doubt, but he was ready to face them, armed with resilience, hope, and the knowledge that small actions could create profound changes. And as he closed his eyes that night, he dreamed not only of the stability this opportunity could bring, but also of the future he could build for Layla, a life filled with love, learning, and endless possibility. The first morning after David accepted Eleanor's offer felt different from any other morning he had experienced in years. There was a quiet excitement in the air as he helped Layla get ready for school. Even the smallest tasks, packing her lunch, making sure her hair was neat, helping her find her shoes, felt more meaningful now. There was a sense of hope that had been absent for a long time, and David could feel it in his chest. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was stepping into a new chapter, one full of opportunity and possibility. After sending Layla off to school, David prepared for his first day in his new role. He felt a mix of nervousness and determination. The corporate world was unfamiliar to him, and he worried about whether he could meet the expectations of a professional environment. But he reminded himself of Eleanor's words. She had chosen him not because of credentials, but because of character, integrity, and dedication. These were qualities he had always valued in himself, and now he had a chance to show them in a new setting. The office was large and welcoming, filled with light and quiet energy. David was introduced to his new team, who greeted him warmly. There was no sense of condescension or judgment, only genuine curiosity and encouragement. He quickly realized that this environment was supportive, designed not to intimidate but to nurture growth. Eleanor's mentorship was present even in subtle ways, through guidance, advice, and a culture that valued collaboration and respect. David's first weeks were challenging. He had to learn new tasks, understand systems he had never used, and adapt to an entirely different pace of work. There were moments when he felt overwhelmed, questioning whether he had made the right decision. Yet each time doubt crept in, he reminded himself of why he was here. For Layla, for stability, and for the chance to grow beyond the limits he had known. Slowly, he began to gain confidence, mastering the skills he needed and discovering strengths he hadn't recognized before. At home, the change was noticeable too. With a more predictable schedule and income, David could focus more on Layla. He no longer rushed through meals or felt the constant pressure of worrying about bills. They spent more time together, sharing small moments that he had often missed before. They played games in the living room, cooked simple meals together, and enjoyed quiet evenings reading or talking about their day. Layla noticed the difference too. Her laughter was freer, and her smile brighter, reflecting the new sense of security in their lives. One afternoon, David received a call from Eleanor. She wanted to check in, not as a boss, but as someone who genuinely cared about his growth and well-being. They talked about his progress, the challenges he had faced, and the ways he had adapted to the new role. Eleanor offered guidance, encouragement, and reassurance, emphasizing that setbacks were natural and that growth often came through perseverance. David felt supported in a way he had never experienced, and it strengthened his resolve to continue doing his best. Over time, David began to notice changes in himself beyond financial stability. He became more confident in decision-making, more patient in difficult situations, and more aware of his own potential. The lessons from Eleanor's mentorship extended beyond work. They influenced how he interacted with people, how he approached challenges, and how he envisioned the future for himself and Layla. He felt empowered, not just as a father or employee, but as a person capable of shaping his destiny through effort, integrity, and persistence. The community around them noticed the changes as well. Neighbors remarked on the difference in David's demeanor. He walked with more confidence, smiled more freely, and seemed lighter despite the weight of responsibility he carried. Friends and acquaintances began seeking his advice and support, recognizing the transformation that had taken place in both his life and his outlook. Through his example, others saw that small acts of courage, patience, and kindness could lead to unexpected opportunities and profound change. One weekend, David decided to take Layla to a local park, something he hadn't done often due to time and financial constraints. They spent hours playing, laughing, and enjoying the outdoors. Layla ran freely, her joy contagious, and David felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He realized that the stability and opportunity provided by Eleanor's offer were not just improving their material circumstances, they were enriching their emotional and personal lives as well. As months passed, David's confidence and skills continued to grow. He took on more responsibilities at work, participated in meetings, and even began mentoring new employees, sharing the lessons he had learned through both struggle and guidance. His life had expanded beyond the narrow focus of survival. He was now building, growing, and influencing others positively. Eleanor remained a supportive presence, offering advice, insight, and encouragement without overstepping, allowing David to